Happy Wednesday, guys. Welcome on into Let's Bet It. Lauren Bar here with Jared Smith. Jared, how you doing today? Happy Wednesday.
Yeah, happy Wednesday. I missed you guys yesterday. It's kind of we're in that kind of lull, you know.
Yeah.
We know we have 4 games coming up this weekend in the NFL, but the college basketball world, the NBA world, the NHL world has been buzzing. But I took the night off last night. I didn't make one wager after my soccer loser in the afternoon. I took the night off. I went out to dinner. I watched a bunch of Office reruns, and then I cozied up in bed with some Disney Plus. Total non-sports night. And it was very much appreciated because sometimes you just need to get away for a little bit. And I've been
Yeah,
very
that sounds
happy.
like a nice, productive evening, Jared. I love it. And also
Great.
Disney Plus ending the night
Oh,
on that.
amazing.
Good
The
call.
new
Good call.
Star Wars, The Book of Boba Fett. Incredible. I'm a big Star Wars geek, so I loved seeing that. And I'm on episode 2, so no, I won't give away any spoilers early on.
I'll tell you an honest comment. I've actually never seen Star Wars, not a
That doesn't surprise
single movie in my whole life.
We're gonna make it. We'll do a. We've been slacking on the swag bets lately. We're gonna bring those back at some point soon, and maybe that's a good punishment consequence for you if you lose. You have to watch the original Star Wars trilogy. I won't make you sit through the new ones or the old new ones.
Okay.
The
I
original is
appreciate
worth.
that. Thank you.
It's
Thank
worth
you.
your time. I promise. I promise.
Okay, cool. We'll get there. We'll get there.
We'll get.
Before we talk about what we're going to talk about today, make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Let us know in the comments what picks you have, what questions you have. We want to get you guys involved in the show, and then also make sure to download the Pickswise app on the Apple Store and Google Play, so you never miss out on any of the content that we're posting of all of our bets every single day. Today, we're taking a look at this weekend, the NFL line movement for the divisional matchups. It's going to be a really, really exciting weekend. 4 big games. I'm really excited about a couple of them, especially. We have NBA Morning Radar with VSIN's Jonathan Van Tobel, so that's going to be fun to be able to go through the NBA slate today, all the games that are going on, get his take on. We're basically halfway through the season now, and then the rest of the season coming up. We have college basketball predictions, the American Express Golf Tournament PGA heating up on the left coast, actually on the left coast this time, on the west coast, Jared. And then we can't end without our best bets of the day and our Pickswise 3-star play of the day. So without further ado, let's get into it. Let's bet it. NFL. There's 4 big games this weekend. I want to start with the Bengals and the Titans because I know that you like the Titans in this spot, right? You're kind of leaning towards them.
Yeah, I think the big news here is on the injury front. I think there's several games this week that have some injury news we need to keep an eye on. But I think the Bengals Titans game is kind of the most impactful in the AFC. The Chiefs Bills is pretty much clean slate on both sides injury wise. But in the AFC, the injury front certainly is important with this Titans and this Bengals game. Let's start with Tennessee. Derrick Henry's back. He is going to play this week, barring some kind of COVID or something unforeseen.
Yeah.
But the injury to his ankle has healed enough to where he's going to play. How much he's going to play, that remains to be seen. I would be shocked if he takes the full workload. So that means you're probably still going to see a little Dante Foreman, which means if they overprice the Henry props with his first game back and they underprice the Foreman props, for the prop players out there, that might be a little bit of an edge. On the Bengals side, it's all about their defensive line. Mike Daniels, out. Ogunjobi, out. Trey Hendrickson, concussion protocol. They're third. So those are all defensive linemen. Hendrickson's the D end. Daniels, Ogunjobi are in the middle. And even so, their 2 starting defensive tackles are out. Their best rush end is in concussion protocol. Their 3rd string defensive tackle, Topu, I can't pronounce his name. He is also questionable, missing some practice time this week. That's troublesome against the Titans offense that likes to pound the rock and are getting back their human battering ram in the backfield. So I think that favors Tennessee a lot. And I'm a little worried about the Bengals' offensive consistency. They were not great in the second half of that game against the Raiders. They didn't score a touchdown. They only scored 6 points. They were lucky to hold on. They were outgained by the Raiders in that game. So to me, it's Tennessee at 3 is kind of the play. 3.5, maybe not so as strong, but I really think the Titans are a tough team. They're a stronger team, and they're also healthier, and they're coming off the bye. So to me, it's an easy decision with Tennessee this week.
Yeah, I might actually be tailing you on that one. I haven't looked too closely at that game yet. The one I've kind of been paying attention to is the 49ers Packers game. And I'm going to pose a question to you because I know the way that I'm leaning right now. I actually bet this game already on Monday before there's been a little bit of line movement. 49ers, they were unlucky again, also on the injury front. Some of their stars banged up, including Bosa, Warner, Harris. Should we expect the line to keep moving towards the Packers if some of these guys, or if I guess if we just don't hear about some of these guys heading into the weekend until like right when the game's starting?
I think it's moved about as much as it's going to move before any
Mhm.
confirmed news comes out. Now, that being said, if it pushes through 6, which is kind of where it's hovering now, then you know something's up. I think Warner will play. I think Bosa will play.
You
I
do.
th- I do. They both missed practice yesterday. It's a Saturday game. That doesn't help. They played Sunday.
I
The
know. Yeah,
Niners
they
did.
got some. They drew the short end of the stick on that one a little
They
bit.
really did, and I'll be honest. I think the Rams, the schedule makers didn't do the Rams any, or if it would have been the Cardinals, any favors either. They've got a short week too, Monday to Sunday, facing Tom Brady. So I think the line's probably moved as much as it has in this gray area midweek.
Mhm.
We just don't know. They're going to miss practice, but they're questionable. They're not out. They're questionable. The injury that I would really recommend keeping an eye on is Jimmy Garoppolo. He also missed
Mhm.
practice yesterday with a shoulder injury. And from what I'm seeing in the weather report, let's put on the meteorologist hat for a minute. It's going to be cold at Lambeau
Yeah,
Field
I mean, you don't need to
Saturday
be put
night.
on the
Yeah,
meteorologist hat for
no.
that one, Jared. They're playing at Lambeau in the middle of the winter. It's the
So you
tundra.
tell me, you got a bum shoulder. What's, playing in 0 degree? I don't know what the temperature will be. I'm assuming it'll be somewhere in the
It's
single
almost like
digits,
you're icing
probably.
it the whole time, though, at the same time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right. But
I mean,
he's already has arm strength problems, and we saw him kind of, he's got these throws sometimes that get away from him. We saw one, that almost cost him the game against the Cowboys on Sunday, and that was in a nice climate controlled Jerry's World, stadium. So I'm concerned for Jimmy Garoppolo's shoulder. That being said, the Packers defense struggles to stop the run. They're bottom 5 in explosive runs allowed this season. That to
yeah, I
me is
bet.
troublesome.
Yeah. I bet the Packers on Monday when it was back to 4.5. Right now it's
It's a good
5.5,
bet.
over-unders at 47.5. So I locked it in just because I knew the line was gonna be moving and I wanted to get it at anything but 6 basically, which it might actually move to at this point. But I just think the 49ers heading to sub-zero temperatures at Lambeau. Lambeau's a tough place to play. You're going up against Aaron Rodgers. It's just a tough spot for the 49ers team that are a little bit banged up. So even if Bosa plays, even if Warner plays, they might not necessarily be at 100% too, right? Like, yeah, they're going to be playing, their bodies are going to be in there, but they're still playing hurt at that point. Like, you're not going to recover from an injury in 6 days. That just doesn't
No.
happen,
The
right?
Warner
So,
injury is tough. Bosa, if he plays concussion, he won't show any effects, I don't think. So
yeah.
that's the one that I wouldn't be as concerned with.
So
But
I
Jimmy
like the
G
points of
is
the
very
Packers.
concerning. Jimmy
Yeah.
G is very
So I guess
concerning.
we'll see how as the week develops, how if he's gonna be playing, if he's not gonna be playing.
Yeah.
If not, how much do you think the line's gonna move?
If Jimmy G doesn't play, this line goes to 11, 10. I mean, Jimmy G's worth at
Yeah.
least a touchdown, I would say. So it's at 6. It goes to at least 10 and then probably pushes 11, 12, and maybe gets to 13. But I think Jimmy G will play, but it's about how effective he'll be. And that's where the
Yeah.
line, I think, will live in limbo. And again, if you start to see this line steam up to 6.5, 7 come Friday night, Saturday morning, then clearly there's some people out there, some very smart people that probably are skeptical on how effective Jimmy G will be.
Yeah. I wanna take us back to the Titans for 1 second because it appears that Vrabel at this point is not gonna be the coach of the year, right? But there is something to be said about the Titans finishing the first of their conference without Derrick Henry and a ton of injuries. Are they undervalued, do you think, at only 3.5 right now heading into this game against the Bengals?
Yeah, all the odds makers to me said this week the Titans continue to be undervalued, and I think you can just look at the futures market. They're
Mhm.
8-1 on Superbook, which there's only 2 teams. I think it's the Bengals and the Niners have lower odds to win the Super Bowl. There's 8 teams left, and the Titans are sitting 6th. Well, they're the number 1 seed in the AFC. They're off a bye. They're getting their best player back. So yes, they're definitely undervalued. I think Mike Vrabel is going to be the coach of the year. At least the odds are telling me that. I think
Really?
I think he deserves to be the coach of the year, frankly,
Yeah.
to be the number one seed. But then again, they're a very undervalued team. They're not a sexy team. The Bengals are the sexier team of these
Yeah.
two, but the ceiling is higher with Cincinnati. The floor is lower, and you saw both on Saturday. You saw the ceiling in the first half. You saw them move it up and down the field and take an early lead, and then you saw the floor in the second half where they really struggled. They
Yeah.
struggled this week against the Titans front that's really aggressive. So I think Tennessee, and we have a future on them. We gave them out in the futures market in the column earlier this season. So if they win the AFC, I will not be upset. I will not be upset at all.
I would not be upset.
Not be upset at all with that outcome.
We have a question in the chat from Brian O'Neill about what day is the best day to get the most value for your bets in the NFL?
Brian, the day that ends in Y that you decide to click submit. That's there's no right answer to that question. It's all about timing and where you feel comfortable. I felt comfortable betting both Tennessee and the Rams early in the week because I thought the lines were going to continue to move in their favor. Obviously we've discussed it at nauseum, the COVID situation, but I think in the playoffs it's less of a factor. I think these guys probably understand there's a lot more at stake and they're likely a lot more cautious. I mean, what is it? 3 weeks? Just
Also,
go
I
sit
feel like
inside
these
for
guys
3
have already
weeks.
had it
Don't
at
go
this
anywhere.
point.
Everyone's at it.
I think
Everyone
it's
in New
gone
York
to
City's
everybody.
at it. It's like the
Like,
entire
literally,
city's
it's
at
gone
it.
to everyone at this point.
Yeah.
Speaking of the Rams, Bucks, you said you placed a couple bets on that one. The spread right now is at 3. You're leading Rams, right?
I love the Rams in this spot. I think the Bucks have been a fade for me for the back half of the year.
Yeah.
And I think when you look at Tom Brady, it's going to be all about the game plan this week. I think and here's where the mental side of Tom Brady comes into play a factor. I think Tom knows that their offensive line has no chance to hold up against this Rams defensive front. So what I think you'll see is a lot of short, quick passes, getting the ball out. Don't let Donald and Floyd and Miller disrupt things and make the Rams secondary, which is, 2 safeties off the street, Eric Weddle and a practice squad guy, make them defend and tackle in space.
Yeah.
And I think they can hold up. They held up well against the Cardinals, but that's going to be the cat and mouse game for Tom Brady. On the other side, the Bucs secondary, I think, has some issues. Sean Murphy-Bunting didn't play against the Eagles with a hamstring injury. We'll see what his status is in practice this week. And the Bucs had a very unique game plan against the Eagles. They played 3 safeties, 51 snaps. I was looking at the splits last night. That was a season high, 51 snaps with 3 safeties on the field, and they played a ton of single high safety. They put a lot of that on tape for McVay and Stafford to kind of eat up this week. I don't know if that's going to be effective against that tandem like it was against Hurts and Sirianni, who just looked completely lost with their game plan. So I think the Rams have a chance to really cause some havoc in the secondary of the Bucs, and I think that's the edge for LA in this game for sure.
Yeah, I'm actually going to tell you with this one. I think I haven't looked too closely at this game yet either. I'm focusing on the Bills Chiefs game, which I think is going to be the best game of the week. Before we bring in JVT, let's go over the Bills Chiefs game. I am so excited about this one. The spread right now is 2.5. Over unders at 54.5. I bet the Bills at 2.5 plus 2.5 in this game. I think the Bills at this point have been the most impressive team of the wild card weekend. They dominated the Pats from start to finish. They became the first team in NFL history to score a touchdown on its first 7 drives in a postseason game. Belichick's worst postseason defeat of his entire coaching career. Now we get a rematch of Week 5. The Bills resemble the team that destroyed the Pats in that game against the Chiefs in Week 5. They won by 18 points in Arrowhead. I know the Chiefs defense has transformed since then, right? And this feels like probably the most evenly matched meeting of the weekend. But I just think Allen has closed ground on Mahomes. The Bills defense has been the best in the NFL. Chiefs offense has been up and down. Right now, I know the defenses are trending a little bit differently. The Bills' run defense now ranks 16th in DVOA over the last 8 weeks. Chiefs is 10th over the last 8, top 11 in both against the run and the pass. But the offenses are both trending up. The Bills lead the league right now in rushing DVOA over the same stretch. I also trust Josh Allen in the spot. I think this is going to be a close game. It's going to be a great game. I'm leaning on Josh Allen and the Bills' run game, and I think the defense is going to be able to hold Patty Mahomes off enough to put a little pressure on him in that spot. Patty Ice.
I love that.
Did you like it?
Speaking of Matty Ice, that was one of the quarterbacks on my list that the Bills defense kind of feasted on down the stretch of the year. So they gave up 33 points to the Bucks in the Week 14 game. Great game, overtime. The Bills came back late, tied it up, and just couldn't get off the field against Tom in overtime. But prior to that, after that, down the stretch of the season, they faced the Panthers. They faced the Falcons with Matty Ice. They faced the Jets. They faced the Pats twice with Mac Jones. I'm a little concerned that this is the week, finally, that this Bills secondary misses Tre'Davious White. But they play this really strange.
My camera just turned off for a second, you guys. That was the weirdest thing ever. I just disappeared.
I noticed I got really big in StreamYard. I just kind of blocked it out and kept going because I wasn't sure what happened.
No, my camera just turned off. I'm like, what just happened?
I'm glad you're back. LJ's back.
I'm so interested.
I'm a little concerned that the Bills secondary, they haven't really been tested since the Tre'Davious White injury. And they play this very but they play this unique nickel secondary where they always have 5 defensive backs on the field. So it kind of masks what Tre'Davious White brings to the table at times. But I think if there's ever a week that they're going to struggle in the secondary, obviously last week they weren't really tested at all. This could be the week. When I looked at the Week 5 game, the one thing I noticed about the Bills defense is they did a really good job on Patrick Mahomes' depth. His average depth of target was very poor in that game. So they kept everything in front of them. And I think that's the strategy in this game. I want to say this game has 1 million points scored in it because it feels like neither offense is going to be stopped. But I have a feeling the Buffalo defense is going to do just enough to kind of keep everything at bay and maybe frustrate Mahomes just a little bit. And we're seeing money on Buffalo here. This is down to now 1.5, I see at Circa, DraftKings.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I think this probably gets to a pick'em. And then I think that's probably where the Chiefs money steps in, probably on the money line, if I had to guess. So if you like the Bills, I'd bet it now. I bet the money line now because I don't think it's going to be a plus money line for much longer. And I think Buffalo probably wins the game, but it's going to be this is going to be a battle. It's going to be the most bet game of the week, no doubt, because it's not only the last game, but it's obviously the most exciting. And I would be shocked if one of these teams doesn't get to 30. I'd be absolutely
really looking
shocked.
forward to that. I know it's going to be so much fun to be able to watch this. I can't even wait. This is and it's the best part that it's the last game because hey, guess what? We got 3, and then we're like, yes, let's go. Okay, a lot of NBA games on the slate today. So let's bring in Jonathan Von Tobel, his VSiN's senior NBA analyst. You can find hosting The Edge at 1 to 2 p.m. Pacific time, Monday through Friday, and on Hardwood Handy. Wow, Jonathan, I'm struggling today with my words. Sometimes words are hard. On the Hardwood Handicappers podcast, JVT, how are you today? Happy Wednesday.
I'm good. It is tough to talk. We speak for a living. I speak for a living, and sometimes I have trouble. Every day I have trouble talking. So I understand.
Just so excited to have you on.
I know. I'm glad
to get the words out of her mouth.
Yeah, glad that we're all in the same boat here. You know what I mean? Like sometimes it's just. I feel like I've only had 1 cup of coffee this morning. Sometimes you got to start the day with 3.
Usually you have, usually you're a triple.
Today. 1 was just not enough. It's really early where you are right now, isn't it?
Yeah, but I've actually I got a newborn kid, so I've been up since about 3:45. It's like kind of it's a usual thing getting up around this time, so this isn't too early.
Yeah, nice. Well, congratulations on the new child. Thanks. I'm super excited for you. I know a lot of games on the slate tonight. We're going to get to some of your picks. I want to start just by asking you a few questions because the Wizards, right? They started the year off incredibly hot. They've cooled off since. They're 8th in the East. With their current if they have a full healthy squad right now, will they be able to push themselves up in the standings, kind of make a little bit of a run at it, and maybe try to catch a team like the Bulls, the Nets, the Bucks?
I think the top tier of the Eastern Conference is probably shoot a little too high for the Washington
Mhm.
Wizards, right? But if we're talking like grabbing a 6th seed and avoiding a play-in situation, I think that's perfectly plausible. The problem with Washington, I think, has been one since the beginning of the year, even when they were playing extremely well and off to that hot start, they've not been a good three-point shooting team. They don't take a lot of threes. Right now, they're the 4th worst three-point shooting team in the NBA, and that's not getting any better, right? Like, there's no guy that's coming that's going to help them out outside of Davis Bertans, like catching fire at an insane rate. And even then, it's like really the only guy that you have that's a consistent knockdown shooter. So that's to me the biggest issue for Washington. And on the defensive end, again, going back to, because I actually on one of the episodes of my podcast talked about this, where when they were in the middle of this hot run, you saw that defensively, one of the things that really stuck out to you, their rim defense has been bad. Like, we're talking in the mid 20s in terms of what they allow within 4 feet of the basket. It was the same at the beginning of the year. So when you have like these two key areas, right, poor rim defense, really poor shooting, you kind of expected this to kind of come crashing back down to earth to a certain extent. So I think they're a pretty solid team. I think their ceiling is a 6th seed in the Eastern Conference, barring like getting somebody at the trade deadline that's going to help their shooting issues. I just don't know if like 4 or 5, or excuse me, 4 or 3 is probably within grasp for a team like this,
Mhm.
Let's reinforce that tonight, because the Wizards have a very intriguing game. We do get to
Against the
see
Nets.
Kyrie Irving tonight because the
Mhm.
Wizards are at home, the Nets are on the road. A little fluctuation with this line overnight.
Yep.
I'm seeing the Wizards take some money. Do you think they're a decent bet tonight at home against the Nets?
Yeah, I totally understand the line move, right? I'll put it that way, because if you look at it just from a matchup standpoint, if you look at the front court for Brooklyn, it's been pretty thin. Nick Claxton's actually a pretty important piece for them defensively. He's done a really good job in his young career in terms of rim protection. And with him not available, you're talking about a starting front court of Daron Sharp, Kessler Edwards. With those two on the floor, the Nets are giving up 70% within 4 feet of the basket. And this is a Wizards team that operates strictly within, right, the painted area. Now, they have a couple of guys that'll take some shots from distance, but it's about getting to within 4 feet. And I think they can do that here against the Brooklyn Nets. They did it the other day against the Philadelphia 76ers, who are quietly, kind of below the radar, how poor they've been in terms of defending the rim. So I think you could totally foresee a scenario here in which Washington wins this game. But I think I agree more with the move here to the total. It opened overnight 229.5. I think we're up to like 231.5 in some spots with the total, because on the flip side, Kyrie Irving and James Harden are good for something offensively. And I think when we look at how poor Washington has been defensively, you could see this game going a little bit back and forth with how high this game could be going, because both teams, I think, are going to have trouble defending the other.
Yeah, one of the sexiest teams right now in the NBA, the Memphis Grizzlies, right? They've covered in 8 of the last 10 games. Can they keep covering at the way that they are? The Bucks going to kind of sharpen up their lines for Memphis, because they have a big game tonight too against the Bucks.
Yeah, there's going to be a sharpening of the number, right? There's got to be at some point. The rate at which they're covering numbers, like you mentioned, is absolutely insane. And this goes back to even the end of November. We're talking about a team in their last 27 games that's 22-5. So they've been covering numbers at a high rate. They've been winning games at an extremely high rate. They lead the league in net rating. They're the best defensive team in the NBA. So at some point, right, there's going to be a little bit of a correction. We did see them fall flat on their face the other night when they caught Dallas, and that was a tough spot for them. So there's going to be situations like that. But on the flip side, like in a matchup like this, for example, we see Milwaukee. Milwaukee the other day against Atlanta on Monday, they had every matchup in the world working for them, right? They had an elite rim offense, especially with Giannis on the floor. You were taking on a Hawks defense that's one of the worst in the NBA, especially, right, since we're talking about mid-November. And all of a sudden in the fourth quarter, you completely collapse. Your defense is absolutely nothing against Trae Young and the Hawks, and you end up losing that game outright to Atlanta. So I think this still might be a spot where Memphis is relatively live and taking on Milwaukee. It seems like a relatively good bounce back spot for the Bucks, given how they performed on Monday. But Memphis is, I have labeled, like in the NBA, you have try hard teams, right? In the regular season, there are teams who don't really give a rip about what's happening. They just want to get into the dance, right? Because they have bigger fish to fry. And then there's Memphis, who have a bunch of young guys who are going to try every single night, who are coached extremely hard and extremely well. And I think that's going to be something that plays into a lot of these matchups. So there's going to be a market correction at some point, but the Bucks really haven't shown you anything consistently on defense that makes you believe that they're going to cover a situation like this.
Speaking of teams that I don't think give a rip until the playoffs, the Lakers. Yeah. You're backing them tonight against the Pacers. And I know the Pacers are the Pacers, but man, oh man, I haven't watched a ton of LA basketball this year. But the parts that I have watched, I've not been impressed. What makes you, inclined to lay some money down on the Lakers tonight?
So I think really it's about Indiana, right? Like you mentioned how poor Indiana has really been. And if you look since about December 15th, the Pacers 3-12 straight up, but you look at some of these defensive numbers. They're 28th in non-garbage time defensive efficiency, giving up 117.9 points every 100 possessions. Their rim defense, they're giving up a lot of attempts within 4 feet of the basket, something the Lakers want to do. They're actually one of the worst transition defenses in the NBA over that time, something the Lakers really want to do, right? Get out and run and get some easy baskets. To me, it's just about the matchup. And there's the question of whether Malcolm Brogdon is going to play, but he's been on the injury report for about a month now with this Achilles issue. He's played, I think, 2 games in the last 3 weeks because he's dealt with the sore Achilles. So even if he does play, don't know how effective he's going to be. I just think at the end of the day, this is a matchup, like I had circled, that was going to be, I think, a favorable one for the Lakers. And the overnight was a little low. It was 3.5. It got to 4.5. Other spots are up to 5 now. So I like 4.5, thinking that from a matchup perspective, this is a Lakers team that I think matches up pretty well with the Pacers team that's definitely sliding at this point.
Trade deadline, JVT, is looming, right? 3 weeks away. Do you think there's any team that's going to be making, some big moves before the trade deadline that we should be considering putting a future in on at this point?
I think it's hard because the guys that are kind of bandied about as the trade deadline pieces aren't exactly like world burners, right? If you go back to last year, the big piece was an Aaron Gordon who went to Denver and had them looking like a title contender before Jamal Murray goes down. Now at the top of the list, we're talking about Jeremy Grant, who would be like a really good role player for a certain team, and like an Eric Gordon for Houston that would go and again fit that role for a team that really needs it. But there's not really like that one big piece that is floating out there that would really shift the dynamic for a certain team. But I will say this, that there are some rumblings. We're talking about the Lakers, like it's very scant, but like it makes a lot of sense from a money standpoint to flip Russell Westbrook and John Wall one more time, right? If Russell Westbrook goes to Houston Rockets and John Wall goes to the Los Angeles Lakers, you add some compensation to that, but he fits so much better than what the Lakers really want. And Westbrook really hasn't gone there. Now, there's no real legs behind that. It just makes sense for that to happen. But to me, it would have to be a move like that would make me think, okay, this is where I'm going to jump in and grab some value on a team, because outside of that, like Jeremy Grant's not going to change in the futures odds. So team A gets him, you're probably going to be able to get a very similar, if not the exact same number that they got before Grant was shipped off, and it goes further down the list.
One of my favorite things about the NBA is the amount of drama that takes
Love
place.
the drama.
I think if there was just a reality TV show based around the NBA, maybe there is. I'm not really keen. We need our friend Jim Monis to come and tell me about my reality TV drama going on here. But the Sixers certainly are dripping with it. The trade deadline, I'm sure, is going to be very interesting with what they do with Ben Simmons. But you actually like them tonight in a total. One of the most maddening bets to make in the NBA, I think, is an under, but you're willing to swallow it tonight with the Magic and the Sixers.
The under sweats.
The unders are very difficult for me, Jonathan, but I'm curious your take with this matchup tonight.
I hate myself every time I bet an under in the NBA. There was like a Thunder game a couple of weeks ago where I bet the game under the total, and the Thunder of all teams shot like 64% from the floor in the first quarter. I'm like, oh, God.
There you go.
It actually ended up going under the total, but still, it's what you feel throughout. But for this game, and this has moved against me a little bit. There's 213.5 up on the board right now. I think a couple spots have flashed 214, but it really comes down to well, Philly is coming off of that loss to Washington that I mentioned. They gave up over 110 points in that game. Washington quietly matches up pretty well with Philly. Like I mentioned, rim defense actually isn't the strength of the Philadelphia 76ers. Wizards went in, shot 17 to 22 within 4 feet, actually drew 7 shooting fouls. Orlando's not going to do that. Orlando is strictly perimeter based. They are a team that shoots a majority of threes. They are a team that is dependent on those threes going in. They have no presence within 4 feet of the basket. And this is a Philly team that is quietly really, really solid in terms of their perimeter defense. 9th in opponent three-point shooting. They are leading the league in tightly contested perimeter shots so far, according to NBA's tracking data. A defender within 2 to 4 feet of a three-point shooter. So I think really it just comes down to the matchup for me. And there's a world, obviously, where I get burned because Philly does so well offensively, right, that they dominate Orlando, and this game still goes over the total. But Philly's extremely slow-paced. Orlando's well into the bottom half of the league in terms of pace as well. So I'm just going to take the fact that Orlando, I don't think is going to have success offense, a slow-paced game, and this thing stays under. So
Mark Zinno, he says the under sweats are worse than the meat sweats. I've never had meat sweats in my life, but you know what? That's what he says, and he sticks with it. So I'll believe him.
It's just it's like, what do you root for? Like you just want nothing. You just want them to just sit there and dribble for 23 seconds and then jack up some terrible shot that hits no rim, and then it's a shot clock violation. So
I
there's
don't know if
no
you guys saw
break.
the Terry Rozier the other day. It was like it was the Hornets game where he gets the ball and it's a half point under the total, and Terry Rozier underhand flips it towards the rim and it goes in and the game goes over.
Oh, that's
It
right.
goes-
I did see that. I did see that.
Baby.
Oh,
Oh my
There's-
they're
god.
terrible.
Everyone has a story.
Oh.
You know, it's actually one of my favorite. Maybe this is just the sadist in me, but when you're new to betting and you get a bad beat, it's like a rite of passage. Like I like seeing how people react to that, because I think it really shows what their true character is when they get something like that happens to them. But we don't wish that upon your under tonight, Jonathan.
No, I appreciate that.
Never
I've had
heard
enough of
your
them
under.
this year.
Yeah, we've had plenty.
In terms of, obviously we're like a little bit over halfway through the season now. What team, I guess, has been the biggest surprise, or a couple teams that have been the biggest surprise for you at this point? I know what we all thought that the Bulls were going to be good. I didn't realize that they were going to be this good heading into the season.
Yeah, well, I think Bulls for me at the top of the list, and I'll go. I didn't think the Bulls. I thought the Bulls were going to be like fighting for like a 4, 5, 6 seed, right? Like maybe something goes wrong and they're playing, for a play-in situation, and it's mainly because I didn't think they were going to be really good defensively. Now, over the last 6 weeks or so, and Caruso hasn't been in the lineup, so it hasn't helped. Their defense has started to look a little worse and more like the team that I expected. But it's hard not to put Chicago at the top of the list, and I will put the Golden State Warriors at the top of that list too, because I figured that Golden State would be really solid defensively. Like last year, they were top 5 in terms of defensive efficiency. One of the biggest misconceptions about this team since the regime has started, they've been a really good defensive team since Steve Kerr has been there. So that was always going to be something that was consistent. But at the beginning of the year, they were incredible offensively. Now that has really taken a big dip since they lost that first game to Phoenix. They're 22nd in offensive efficiency. Steph Curry's in a really weird slump, and they broke out of it last night, but that's Detroit, so we'll see if that continues against some better opponents. But I think the way that the Warriors shot up to the top of the standings and how good they were offensively before Klay Thompson came back and got comfortable, that was really surprising to me how dominant they looked early on.
You know, it's funny because the other team that I would say is kind of a surprise in the East is Cleveland. Yep. And Chicago and Cleveland play each other tonight. We'll get you out of here on that. Is there any lean for you there in that game? I know it's not on your list of plays for tonight, but I think that game is fascinating because you have kind of two teams that are, trying to ascend to that Eastern Conference contender category. I would put Chicago in a little bit better regard now, but it's the Cavs that are laying points tonight on the road.
Yeah, it's pretty surprising, and in the Cavaliers too, they're floating. They're kind of floating along, even with all of the losses injury wise.
Yeah.
Right? Like Rubio's not playing, Colin Sexton's not playing, and they're still waiting for Rajon Rondo to get there. I'll say this with this game, Alex Caruso is coming back tonight. He's listed as probable to play. You still don't have Lonzo Ball out there, but that's going to be a really big boost for Chicago defensively. Yeah. And there does get to a point, right, where as well as Cleveland has played, it's funny, I always pay attention to market perception of teams. Chicago was power rated to the moon for a really long time. Now, all of a sudden, as well as Cleveland has played, because they've gone through this little swoon in their schedule, now they're catching 3 points at home against the Cleveland Cavaliers. It does seem to me that that's a strong overreaction by the market to make Cleveland a 3-point favorite, especially with a guy like Caruso coming back. So I would expect the market to kind of come back towards Chicago here as we get closer to tip-off.
I think I might, and I don't bet a ton of NBA. I'll be honest, the Bulls catching 3 at home sounds pretty intriguing to me.
Yeah.
JVT, appreciate it so much. Thank you. Jonathan Von Tobel, VSiN Senior NBA Analyst. We loved having you on. We'll definitely have you on in the future. Good luck with your under bets tonight.
Appreciate it, guys. Thank you. It was fun.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it. JVT, man, he's awesome. Loved having him on.
Love those.
Yeah, VSiN Senior NBA Analyst. You love to see it. Let's take it from men to boys now because we're going to college basketball, right? I'm actually not betting any college basketball tonight, but I want to talk about this LSU Alabama game because it's the marquee matchup of the night, right? The spread right now is Bama laying 4. But Bama, they dropped the last 3 games. They dropped out of the top 25. This is a must-win game for them. They've been also struggling from long range. You look at last game, they shot 8 for 20. I think it was 8 for 29 or 8 for 30 from deep. And they also were out-rebounded 43-32. LSU coming off of only their second loss of the season. They only scored 2 points in the final 9 minutes, though, against Arkansas, which isn't great when you're falling apart like that at the end of the game. But Tigers are 13th in the country. They're 15-2 on the season. Defensively, they're allowing only 57 points per game. They're the top defensive team in the country. What are you expecting from a game like this tonight?
So our buddies over at KenPom, they do a great job with rating things and kind of analytics and stuff like that. ratings and all those fun numbers. So they do something every night called a thrill score, and they rank all the games on the schedule, and they tell you which one should be the most exciting of the night, the thrill score. This game is like off the charts thrill score. By far, this is the most exciting game of the night, at least according to the analytics people. And you're right, Bama's kind of up against it right now. They've lost 3 in a row. One of those losses was really bad to Missouri, who, you know, I hope I don't upset our friend Jim Root, who's a big Missouri
Jim Root's
alum.
probably happy.
But but you know, he had the flag right side up for that one because Mizzou got a big win over Bama in Columbia. And then Bama, you know, I was actually on Bama the night they faced Auburn in that Iron Bowl game. And Auburn really showed me that I think they're the best team in the SEC. And then Bama followed that up after losing to their rival Auburn with a really tough loss in Stark Vegas to Mississippi State. So Bama's up against it right now. And I think this is a kind of put up or shut up game for them. Ken Palm's got this as a tight game, 1-point game on either side. So I don't see a ton of value laying the points with Bama. But I do think Bama wins this game. And I think because of the thrill factor of this game and the fact that LSU's defense is really good, I'd be fascinated to turn this game on, see how the Bama offense is playing against the really good LSU defense. If they're starting to make some headway and they're starting to get their swag back, then I maybe be willing to bet Bama live. But pregame, it's tough because I think they really need this game. And sometimes that makes it, you get a little tight. And then when you're facing a team with a defense like LSU, all of a sudden you miss some early shots, you fall into a hole, and then you get tighter. And then you start pressing, and then you start taking bad shots. And this Alabama team could just be a little bit helter-skelter sometimes with their offense. Even though they're very efficient, at times they can be a little bit up and down. Like when I watched that Auburn game the other day, it looked like kind of like a rec league game, like a YMCA game. Like people were just running all over the place. There were turnovers. There were all these crazy plays. So the SEC brand of basketball, while it's very exciting, I think LSU plays a very efficient on the defensive end of the floor, which makes Alabama's style a little harder to predict. So no bet for me here. I would lean Bama to win, not laying points, but I'm definitely going to be watching this game, and I'm definitely going to have my finger on the trigger for a potential live bet at some point if Bama's offense looks like they're finding their form a little bit.
You're also on Wake Forest tonight, right? Laying the points.
Yeah, I love this Wake team. Let me pull up my notes here on Wake. So I think this Wake Forest team is trending in the right direction. They're starting to put together some really positive results in the conference, which is not something Wake has really done a whole lot of recently. And when I look at Wake overall, hold on, I had Alabama's Ken Palm page up. Let me pull Wake's up to make sure I'm quoting my numbers right. 3 of 4 since the new year, which is impressive. And they had a couple really nice wins. I think that win over Florida State's really impressive. 76-54 at home over a good athletic Florida State team. And tonight they're facing Georgia Tech, who is just going in the opposite direction. Georgia Tech's lost 4 of 5 since the new year. They gave up 88 on Saturday to UNC. And I don't know if you watched that UNC game last night against Miami, but holy smokes, they were bad. UNC got blasted last night down in Coral Gables. The Tech offense is just not good. And I think they're going to struggle to score tonight against Wake. So Tech's 185th in effective field goal percentage. They're not really playing with any cohesion right now, which is kind of a surprise because Josh Pastner's been a great coach and he's had some decent Georgia Tech teams in his tenure. But this year, it just hasn't clicked. They're 1-5 in the ACC. They're basically dead last in the conference. Keep an eye on Alondis Williams tonight. He leads the conference in scoring. He's the top scoring guard for Wake Forest. I think he's going to be the guy that kind of carries the mail for this team. And they also could be getting back Damari Monsanto, who's the reigning SoCon Rookie of the Year with East Tennessee State last year. He transferred to Wake, then got hurt in the preseason with an Achilles injury. And I'm hearing he might actually make his debut tonight, which would be huge for Wake. And again, I just think this Wake Forest team trending up, Georgia Tech trending down, and you're laying a short number, 2.5. So I like the Deeks tonight to get past the Ramblin' Wreck.
Demon Deeks, baby.
Demon Deeks.
All right, let's take it across the pond because you got some EPL picks. It's been a minute since we had some kick picks from you, Jared Smith. Let's hear them.
Oh, Lauren Andrabara. Yesterday was a rough day for the kick picks. I thought I had that Chelsea game pegged right, and they just came out completely flat.
Yeah.
And you give a little bit, you give just a little bit of credit to Brighton, who played really
Yeah.
spunky at home. But today we're going to some familiar names actually on the Kick Picks card today. So let's start with Brentford and Manchester United. We're going with our patented over 2.5, both teams to score parlay. It's a staple of the Kick Picks arsenal. Man United's given up a ton of chances. Their defense, especially since their new coach came in, Ralph Ragnick, it's been kind of ragged in the back for United. And Brentford's been spunky this year. They were one of the teams that got promoted from the championship. They've had some really nice wins against some top flight clubs, but they've kind of tailed off of late. They've been outscored 7-0 or 7-0 in their last 2 matches. They just got blown out by Liverpool the other day. United should get back Cristiano Ronaldo, and they should get back Marcus Rashford. And I think United's going to score 2, and I think Brentford gets 1. So 2-1 final there for United, and I think the over 2.5, both teams to score. Who knows? Might be 2-1 Brentford. Brentford's been a little spunky this year. You never know. United, I could see something fluky happening with that game today. Finally, Tottenham and Leicester. Spurs taking on Leicester. It's a home match for Leicester, and I'm not really keen on Leicester right now. They're missing a ton of starters, including their best scorer, Jamie Vardy, and they've got a couple defenders out as well. And Tottenham's been re-energized since Antonio Conte's taken over the reins there. So they haven't suffered a Premier League loss since they made a manager switch a few weeks ago. And I think Harry Kane's coming on, 3 goals in his last 4 matches. And Lucas Moura is a guy to watch up front as well for Spurs. So we're going to go Tottenham money line parlayed with the over 1.5. I think Tottenham wins 2-0, maybe 2-1. And that's plus 180. So we got some juicy picks today. Plus 130 on the Brentford Man U match.
Picks.
Yeah, we got some plops. And then Tottenham and the over 1.5. So we'll see. Soccer picks have been a little lately, but we'll try to turn it around.
Hey, you know what? It's a new day, Jared. It's Wednesday. It's the hump of the week.
Fingers
We're getting
crossed.
over it, and we'll get over it with your EPL picks. We love it. Best bet of the day on the Pickswise.com website. Who we got?
Oh, let's take a look here. Let's see if we can give one out. I think I think we gave out Kansas yesterday, you guys, and it was tough. I forget. I think it was a hook loss there. Philip Tomic likes the Lakers. Which kind of goes with JVT's pick that we just gave out. And Lock Mamba must really like to sweat. He likes the under in that Bama LSU game. Woo! That would be a sweat for me. Bama LSU under 149.5 if you're in the mood for an under sweat. And I like that Lakers pick. I do. Maybe I'll tail the Lakers tonight. I really do not like betting on the Lakers laying points, but I think if 2 experts are on it tonight, maybe I'll have to change my mind.
Check it out on the Pickswise.com website. 3-star plays of the day every single day. You'll love to see it. Our best bets of the day. You talked about yours. Your Wake bet is your best bet of the day, yeah?
Yeah. Love the Wake Demon Deacons tonight. Not going to be the dead horse. We just talked about it. But I think Alondis Williams is the difference tonight. And the one nugget I'll add is that Wake is coming off a really nice win over UVA. They snapped a 9-game losing streak against Virginia. Monkey off their back. Now they face Georgia Tech tonight, who they've lost 5 straight to. So it's a streak-breaking week for the Demon Deacons. I think they get past UVA. They did, and they get that over that hump, and now they're going to get past Georgia Tech tonight and break that streak. And Demon Deacons are a team to look out for in the ACC. They're trending in the right direction.
Yeah, I like it. Well, I can't end a show without giving at least one ice pick, right, Jared?
Obviously.
So I'm taking it to MSG. Sorry to our producer, Jack, in advance. He's not going to like my bet. They're taking on the Maple Leafs at one of the most iconic, famous barns in all of sports, an original 6 matchup that we have going on. Both teams in the playoff picture right now. I actually like the Maple Leafs 3-way money line at minus 105. That's the best value I could get for it. Toronto, they've struggled out of the gate at the beginning of the season, but they've been hot since late October, right? The Rangers pushed their way to the top of the Metro. They have strong goaltending, good defensive play. These teams differ, though, in offensive firepower. Toronto's Matthews, Marner, Tavares, Nylander. Rangers can't really match with that, right? Most teams can't, to be honest, besides what? Maybe the Avs, maybe Tampa. I don't know. I think Shesterkin's going to keep this game close for the Rangers, but Campbell's on the other side. He's going to slow down the Rangers offense, and the Rangers take this one in regulation with their offensive firepower. And I also think they're just going to that Campbell's been playing so well in between the pipes. He's gonna be able to shut down the Rangers on the offensive side. So I like the Leafs three-way money line in this one, -105. Jack said he doesn't like it at all, but you could get 10 people to smash that like button. I won't be as mad. So hit the like button, you guys. You like the best.
Here's my question, and this is
Yeah.
a shocking revelation. You're not betting the Avs tonight.
I know. I'm just gonna watch that game and enjoy it.
Yeah, you're in Denver too, so I'm like, I figured
know.
you'd be
Thought
all
of
over
that
the
today,
Avs.
but
And I'll be honest, I'm looking at our friends at Money Puck who do an unbelievable job with the hockey analytics, and they've got the Avs as a pretty heavy.
yeah, I mean, I think the Avs are gonna win this game. I might bet it later. I just didn't have it. I like sometimes I just want to watch Avs games and not be stressed. You know what I
That's
mean?
fair.
Yeah.
That is fair, but also on the other side, even if you don't have money on the Avs, you're always stressed because you want them to win.
That is
I
true.
would consider, what's the Avs three-way tonight? It's a little juicy, -160. Maybe go 2.5. How about Avs -2.5 at
Oh
+160?
wow, aggressive.
I mean, when they win, it's like they blow people
Yeah, when they
out.
win,
When
they
they
But a lot of the games have actually been going into overtime recently, to be honest.
yeah.
So
The reason that I really like the three-way money lines, overtime is so fluky. Like, talk about, like, in the NFL, at least the rules in overtime are the same. You have 11 players on the field. You have to score a touchdown in the same way. In hockey, it's the only sport where in the extra session, the rules get so different. It's 3-on-3, which is just madness. And then the shoot. Did you see the aisle shootout last night?
yeah,
It's like 11 rounds. Like,
crazy.
it's almost like I don't want to have a bet on overtime. So it's like I want my bet to end in regulation. And then once overtime happens, total
Then-
crap. All
yeah.
bets are off, as they say.
Yeah. It's just an absolute it's absolute mayhem. Who even knows?
Those 3-on-3s are crazy. It's madness.
I know. Well, that's it for us today. Happy Wednesday, guys. Make sure to find us on the Pickswise YouTube channel. Go to pickswise.com. Follow us on Twitter. Jared Smith. I'm Lauren Jabara. Best of luck tonight. We'll see y'all tomorrow. Let's get it. Let's bet it.